Life had beaten Juliet hard from childhood, born into poverty, denied university education, and mocked for selling food by the roadside. She had every reason to give up, but one ordinary afternoon, a stranger dressed like a madman came begging her for food, and Juliet's single act of kindness opened the door to a destiny she never imagined. If you believe kindness can change lives, then this story will touch your heart. Watch till the end and don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you are seeing this channel for the first time, because the next story might just remind you that your breakthrough is closer than you think. Now let's dive into the story. Juliet was born into poverty. Her father was a poor farmer. Her mother sold firewood and every day was a battle just to survive. Many times they went to bed hungry. Juliet wore torn clothes to school, sometimes even walking barefoot because her parents could not afford shoes. Growing up, Juliet understood poverty like it was a family member. She knew the meaning of going to bed hungry, of wearing torn clothes until they could no longer be patched, of watching other children eat food she could only dream of. Many mornings, she and her siblings would sit around their mother waiting for breakfast, only for her to say with a sad smile, "Children, manage till later. There is no food for now." The only thing Juliet's parents could give her in abundance was love. They encouraged her to go to school, even though they sometimes struggled to pay for exercise books or pencils. Juliet walked long distance barefoot to her village school. Dust clung her feet in the dry season, and mud splashed up her legs during the rainy season. But she did not mind. She loved learning. In class, Juliet sat on broken benches or sometimes on the bare floor, yet her mind was sharp. She always came first or second in her exams. Teachers admired her. One of them once told her, "Juliet, if you continue like this, you will become somebody great in the future." Those words became fuel in her heart. She wanted to make her parents proud. She wanted to break free from the chains of poverty. But poverty was stubborn. While other children had new school uniforms every year, Juliet wore the same faded dress from her first year in secondary school until her final year. It was torn under the armpit and patched in several places, but she still wore it proudly. Sometimes her classmates mocked her. "See Juliet, always looking like a church rat." They laughed. She would bow her head in silence, fighting back tears, but deep inside, she promised herself, "One day I will rise above this." Despite the challenges, Juliet pushed through secondary school. She studied late into the night, reading her borrowed textbooks under the dim light of a kerosene lamp. Sometimes her stomach growled from hunger, but she pressed on, whispering to herself, "My tomorrow must be greater than today." When her final exam results came out, Juliet passed with flying colors. Her joy knew no bounds. She rushed home, waving her result paper in the air, her eyes glowing with hope. "Mama, Papa, I made it. I passed everything," she shouted. Her parents hugged her tightly. They were so proud, but as they looked into her bright eyes, a shadow of sadness crept into their hearts. Juliet saw it and asked softly, "Papa, why are you sad? I thought you would be happy." Her father sighed deeply, his rough hands resting on her shoulders. "My daughter, we are proud of you. You are the star of this family, but..." He swallowed hard, his voice breaking. "We do not have money to send you to university." Juliet's heart sank. Her hands trembled as she held the paper that once gave her joy. "But Papa, I worked so hard. I thought this was my way out," she whispered. Tears filled her mother's eyes. She wiped them quickly with the edge of her wrapper and tried to smile. "My child, don't cry. God will make a way. We may not afford university now, but who knows tomorrow? What tomorrow will bring." That night, Juliet lay on her raffia mat, staring at the roof of their small mud house. She listened to the sound of crickets outside and the snoring of her siblings beside her. Silent tears rolled down her face. She thought of her dreams, wearing a graduation gown, working in an office, buying her parents a fine house. Were those dreams about to die even before it began? Her pillow was wet with tears, but before she finally fell asleep, she made a vow in her heart. "I will not give up. I may not know now, but I will find a way. Poverty will not kill my dreams." The next morning, Juliet woke up with a new determination. She swept the compound, helped her mother fetch water, and went to the farm with her father. As she walked under the hot sun, she told herself again and again, "One day, this suffering will end. One day, I will bring my family out of this life." That thought kept her going. Even when her heart blistered from the hoe, even when her stomach ached from hunger. Life in the village continued to weigh heavily on Juliet after her secondary school days. Every morning, she watched her father return from the farm with sweat dripping from his forehead and nothing more than a few tubers of yam in his basket. Her mother's firewood sales barely fetched enough to buy gari. Juliet could feel the burden of poverty tightening its grip around her family. She knew she could not continue like this forever. Then, one sunny afternoon, a surprise visitor arrived in the village. It was Ada, Juliet's childhood friend. Ada had left for the city years ago, and no one had heard much from her. Now, she returned looking like a completely different person. Her skin was glowing, her hair neatly fixed, her nails painted, and her clothes flashy. She carried a shiny handbag that immediately drew the attention of the village girls. "Juliet, my sister," Ada shouted as soon as she saw her. She hugged Juliet tightly, leaving the smell of her expensive perfume on Juliet's old faded dress. Juliet was amazed. "Ada, look at you. You look so different, so fine." Ada smiled proudly. "That is city life, my dear. You are still suffering here. Why are you wasting your time in this village?" she asked. They sat under a mango tree and caught up on lost years. Ada told Juliet about the city, how the lights never went out, how there were big houses everywhere, and how money flowed if you knew the right things to do. Juliet listened with wide eyes. The picture Ada painted sounded like another world. She could almost see herself walking confidently in the city, working, making money, and changing her family's story. Ada leaned closer and whispered, "Juliet, come with me. Leave this village. There is nothing here for you. In the city, life is better. You are too smart and too beautiful to rot here." Juliet's heart raced. Could this be her chance? Could the city be the key to the future she had always dreamed of? That evening, she told her parents what Ada had said. Her father dropped his hoe and sighed. "My daughter, the city is not always what it looks like, but if you truly want to go, we will not stop you. Just promise us that you remember who you are and the values we taught you." Her mother's eyes filled with tears as she packed some clothes into a small bag for her. "Juliet, life in the city can be hard. Hold on to God. Don't let anyone mislead you. And remember, home will always be here." The next morning, Juliet hugged her parents and siblings tightly. Her little brother Chike clung to her leg, crying, "Sister Juliet, don't go. Who will help me with homework?" Juliet forced a smile and kissed his forehead. "Don't cry, Chike. I will go, but one day I will come back to take you all with me." With a small bag, a heart full of hope, and fear she tried to hide, Juliet followed Ada out of the village. The journey to the city was long. They boarded a rickety bus that rattled along dusty roads. Juliet sat by the window, watching as the familiar trees, farms, and huts of her village disappeared behind her. She left both excited and nervous. Every turn of the wheels brought her closer to a new life. When they finally arrived, Juliet could not believe her eyes. The city was noisy and alive. Cars honked endlessly, tall buildings touched the sky, and people rushed in every direction. Street lights flickered, and music blasted from shops and bars. Juliet stood frozen for a moment, her mouth slightly open. She had never seen anything like it. Ada laughed at her. "Close your mouth, Juliet. Welcome to Lagos. This is where dreams are made." They moved into Ada's one-room apartment, which was small but neat. That night, as Juliet lay on the bed, she thought of her parents and siblings back in the village. Her heart ached, but she reminded herself, this is the beginning of a new life. I will not fail. The following days, Ada began to show Juliet around the city. She took her to busy markets, tall banks, and restaurants where people spend more on one meal than Juliet's father made in a week. But soon, Juliet began to notice things that worried her. Ada often dressed in revealing clothes, wore heavy makeup, and came home late at night with different men dropping her off. She would sometimes hand Juliet small gifts or money. "Juliet, stop struggling," Ada told her one evening. "Life is easy if you know how to play the game. Join me in hookup. You will make money fast. Look at me. See how I'm shining." Juliet shook her head immediately. "No, Ada, I can never do that. I would rather suffer honestly than sell my body. That life is not for me." Ada rolled her eyes and laughed. "You are too stubborn. You will suffer, my dear. Nobody makes it in the city without shortcuts." Juliet's heart sank. She began to wonder if coming to the city was truly a good idea. She had no job, no money, and no education. The city was beautiful, but it was also harsh. Still, Juliet refused to give up. She looked out of Ada's small window one night and whispered to herself, "No matter what, I will survive here. I will not lose my dignity. One day, this city will know my name." Juliet's first week in the city were confusing. The streets never slept. Cars honked all day and all night. Traders shouted on top of their voices. Everyone seemed to be rushing somewhere. Juliet felt like a tiny drop in a big ocean. She wanted to make it, but she didn't know how. Her friend Ada, who brought her to the city, kept pushing her. "Juliet, stop wasting your time. Join me in hookup. You will be rich faster than you can imagine." But Juliet refused. Each time Ada mentioned hookup, her heart rejected it. She remembered her parents' words, hold on to your values, no matter what. She couldn't imagine disappointing them or herself. Still, she needed to survive. One morning, as she sat outside Ada's apartment thinking, her eyes caught some women cooking and selling food by the roadside. Taxi drivers and conductors were rushing to buy plates before hurrying back to work. An idea sparked in Juliet's mind. I can do this, she whispered. She gathered the little money she had, money her mother had pressed into her hand before she left the village, saying, use it for emergency. It wasn't much, but Juliet bought a small pot, a few plates, and enough rice and beans to cook. She also borrowed an old kerosene stove from a neighbor. The next morning, long before the sun rose, Juliet woke up. She washed her rice, fetched water from a public tap, and lit the stove. As the fire came alive, smoke filled her eyes, making them water. Her hands trembled, but she pushed through. By the time the first rays of morning light touched the streets, her pot was bubbling with hot food. She carried the pot to a small corner near a bus stop, spread out her plates, and called out shyly, rice and beans. Come and buy rice and beans. At first, no one noticed her. People rushed past, hurrying to their jobs. But then, a tired bus conductor stopped. He looked into the pot and nodded. How much? 50 naira, Juliet said timidly. He handed her the money, and she quickly dished the steaming food into a plate. That single say gave her courage. Soon, a few more people stopped by. Taxi drivers, hawkers, and even a mechanic bought from her. By afternoon, her pot was empty. She had sold everything. That night, Juliet counted her money with a smile. It wasn't much, but it was proof that she could survive without selling her body. From then on, Juliet became known in the area. People called her Mama Put because that was what Lagosians called roadside food sellers. Every morning, taxi drivers and conductors waited for her to set up her small stand. They loved her food because it was simple but tasty, but the business was not easy. Juliet's days started at 4 a.m. She would fetch water, wash rice and beans, and begin cooking while others were still asleep. The smoke from the stove stung her eyes until tears ran down her cheeks. Her palms became rough and dark from constantly handling hot pots. Some days, the food didn't sell well, and she lost money. Worst of all, Ada never stopped mocking her. Juliet, look at you. Your face is always sweaty. Your hands smell of kerosene and your clothes are stained with stew. Who would even want to be your friend? Meanwhile, I just came back from the club last night with 50,000 naira in my purse. You are wasting your life. Juliet would simply smile and reply, at least, my money comes with peace of mind. Sometimes though, when she was alone, her heart felt heavy. She wondered if she was really making the right choice. She saw how Ada lived, always with new clothes, new shoes, and expensive phones, while she could barely afford to replace her old slippers. Doubts whispered to her, what if Ada is right? What if you waste your life selling food? But Juliet always silenced that voice with faith. She would remember her parents and the promises she made to herself back in the village. Each plate of rice and beans she sold was a small step away from poverty. Her customers encouraged her too. A taxi driver once told her, Mama Put, your food is sweet. You go make it, no worry. Another mechanic said, you dey hustle well. God go bless your hand. These words kept her going. Slowly, Juliet saved small amounts from her daily sales. Some days she bought more plates. Other days she added little extra to her food, like fried plantain or moi moi. People began to notice, and her stand grew more popular. But even as her small business gained strength, life remained tough. She still lived with Ada, who had grown impatient with her. Ada would often say, Juliet, you are stubborn. You will die on this street one day. Nobody makes it in this city without shortcuts. Juliet will only shake her head and keep quiet. Deep inside, she whispered, one day, my story will change. It was a blazing hot afternoon in Lagos. The sun poured down like fire, and the streets buzzed with its usual noise. Buses honked, traders shouted, hawkers carried trays of granules and pure water, and the smell of petrol mixed with the aroma of frying akara. Juliet sat by her small Mama Put stand, fanning herself with a piece of cardboard as she waited for customers. Her pot was half full of rice and beans. Business had been slow that day, and she silently prayed that more customers would come so she wouldn't carry leftovers home. Sweat rolled down her back and she wiped her forehead with the edge of her wrapper. Suddenly, she noticed a man walking slowly towards her stand. At first glance, he looked like a beggar. Dirty clothes clung to his thin frame. His hair was uncombed and rough, and his face carried the weariness of someone who had been on the streets too long. Some people nearby hissed and shouted, Madman, go away. A woman selling oranges screamed, "Don't bring your madness here," oh," another trader added, waving her hand. The man ignored them. He kept walking until he stood right in front of Juliet's small table. His eyes looked tired. His lips cracked with dryness. He stretched his hand weakly, like someone begging for food. Juliet's heart tightened. She looked at the man closely. His clothes were torn, dust clung to his legs, and his sandals were worn out. She had seen beggars before, but something about this man touched her deeply. While others saw a nuisance, she saw hunger. "Brother," she said softly, "are you hungry?" The man nodded slowly. Without hesitation, Juliet picked up her serving spoon. She scooped a generous portion of rice and beans into a plate. She added raw stew and even placed one of her precious pieces of meat on top. Meat was not cheap, and she hardly ate it herself, but she couldn't let this man go hungry. "Here," she said, pushing the plate towards him. "Eat. Don't worry about money." For a moment, the man just stared at her. His eyes seemed to search her face, as if trying to understand her. Then, slowly, he took the plate. He sat on the edge of a gutter nearby and began to eat. Juliet noticed how he ate, calmly, with dignity, not rushing like most hungry people did. As he ate, some people around mocked Juliet. "You dey waste your food, Mama Puss. You think that madman go pay you?" One bus conductor shouted. "And so them go chop all your profits finish." Another laughed. Juliet ignored them. Deep inside, she felt peace. She didn't care if she lost money. All she cared about was that she had fed a hungry man. When he finished eating, the man stood up. He looked at her again, his eyes softer this time, almost shining, but he said nothing. He simply nodded in gratitude and walked away. Juliet looked at him and went back to serving her customers. To her, it was just another act of kindness, nothing more. The next morning, Juliet woke up before dawn as usual. She cooked, carried her hot to the bus stop, and arranged her plates. She had just started calling out to customers when a sleek black jeep slowly pulled up in front of her. Juliet's mouth fell open. Cars like that were things she only saw in movies or passing by rich neighborhoods. The jeep door opened and out stepped a tall, well-dressed man in a neat suit. His shoes shone, his wristwatch sparkled, and behind him were two men in dark glasses who looked like bodyguards. Juliet's first thought was, "What is a rich man doing in front of my small food stand?" Then her heart skipped a beat. The man's face looked familiar. She blinked once, twice, and gasped. It was the same man she had fed yesterday. Her hands began to tremble. She dropped the serving spoon and stared. You, she stammered. "You are the madman from yesterday." The man smiled. "Yes, my name is Joseph, but I was not mad. I was only pretending." Juliet's confusion deepened. Pretending? But why? Joseph walked closer, his voice calm and firm. "I am a businessman. In fact, I am a billionaire. For months, I have been disguising myself, moving around the city, testing people's hearts. I wanted to see if kindness still exists. Everywhere I went, people mocked me, chased me away and ignored me. But yesterday, you gave me food freely. You showed me kindness when you had so little yourself. From that moment, I knew you are the person I've been looking for." Juliet covered her mouth with her hands, her heart beating wildly. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Around her, customers and traders had gathered, watching in shock. Joseph continued, his eyes never leaving her. "Juliet, from today, your life will never be the same. I will sponsor you. I will support your dreams and make sure you never suffer again." Tears filled Juliet's eyes. Her knees felt weak and she gripped the edge of her table to steady herself. She remembered the long nights she had cried on her raffia mat in the village, the days of hunger, the mocking laughter of Ada, and the smoke-filled morning at her food stand. Was this how God answered prayers? Through a stranger she had fed without expecting anything in return. The traders around began whispering. Some clapped their hands in disbelief. The same people who had mocked her yesterday now looked at her with admiration. Juliet wiped her tears and bowed her head slightly. "Sir, I don't know what to say. I only did what my heart told me. I never imagined this." Joseph smiled warmly. "That is why you deserve it. Prepare yourself, Juliet. Your story is about to change forever." As he returned to his jeep, Juliet stood frozen, her heart pounding with a mixture of shock and joy. She had no idea how big the change would be, but deep inside, she knew her life would never be the same again. Juliet's life began to transform in ways she had only dreamed about in her quiet nights on the raffia mat back in the village. The very next week after meeting Joseph, he returned to her stand, not dressed as the beggar she first met, nor even in his sharp corporate suit. This time, he came with papers, documents, and a calm smile. He sat with her as if she was his equal. "Juliet," he said gently, "I want to keep my promise. What level of education have you attained?" "Secondary school, sir," Juliet answered. "Very well then, I will pay for your university education. You deserve it. But I also want you to dream bigger. What do you really want for yourself?" Juliet was silent. For years, her only dream had been to survive, to eat, to help her parents, to see her siblings go to school. Now this man was asking her to dream beyond survival. She swallowed hard. I want to go to school. I want to be educated, but I also love cooking. If I could have a big restaurant, not just this small stand, I would be very happy." Joseph nodded. "Good. Education will give you knowledge. Business will give you independence. I will give you both." True to his word, Joseph paid for her university admission, bought her books, and even gave her a small monthly allowance. For the first time in her life, Juliet walked into a university classroom with her head held high, not as the poor girl who couldn't afford tuition, but as a young woman with hope. At the same time, Joseph began setting up a restaurant for her. He bought a wide shop space in a busy area of Lagos, renovated it, and filled it with shiny chairs, table, and a modern kitchen. Juliet could hardly believe her eyes when she first stepped in. The smell of new paints, the glitter of polished tiles, and the hum of refrigerators felt like a dream. This is mine," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. Joseph smiled. "Yes, Juliet, this is the fruit of your kindness. You gave me food freely. Now, I give you a future freely. Use it well." When the restaurant opened, it was nothing like her old roadside stand. The signboard read "Juliet's Kitchen" in bold letters. Customers trooped in, drawn by the aroma of her food and the reputation she had already built as Mama Put. Taxi drivers who had once eaten from her small pots now sat proudly in her restaurant, saying to new customers, "I knew her when she was still selling by the roadside." Juliet worked hard, managing her studies and her business side by side. She woke up early to oversee the restaurant, then rushed to school and came back in the evening to check on things again. It wasn't easy, but she carried it with joy. She knew this was the life she had fought for. Money began to flow, but Juliet never forgot where she came from. The very first thing she did with her savings was travel back to her village. When her parents saw her return, they could hardly believe their eyes. She stepped out of a car Joseph had arranged for her, dressed neatly in clothes finer than anything she had ever worn. Her mother dropped the bundle of firewood she was carrying. "Juliet, my daughter," she cried, rushing forward. Juliet knelt immediately and held her mother's legs. "Mama, I told you I would come back. I told you I would take you out of suffering." Her father's eyes glistened with tears. He touched her head and whispered, "God has done it, my daughter. God has lifted you." That week, Juliet did something that shook the entire village. She gathered her siblings and packed her parents' few belongings and told them, "We are moving to the city. No more hunger, no more suffering. I bought a house for us there." The news spread like wildfire. Neighbors gathered, whispering in amazement. Was this the same Juliet who once walked barefoot to school, wearing a torn uniform? Now she was taking her entire family to the city, lifting them out of poverty. In the city, her parents lived in a fine house Juliet had already bought. Her siblings went to good schools, dressed in clean uniforms with books and shoes Juliet paid for. Her mother no longer needed to carry firewood, and her father no longer struggled with the hoe on dry soil. They lived in peace and comfort. Thanks to their daughter's resilience, Juliet became a role model in her community. People pointed at her and said, "That girl refused shortcuts. She suffered honestly, and now God has rewarded her." Even Ada, her old friend, came to see her one day. Ada was no longer shining the way she once did. The years of hookup had worn her down. She looked older, her beauty fading. Standing in Juliet's restaurant, she lowered her eyes. "Juliet, you were right. I mocked you. I laughed at you. But look at you now. You are blessed." Juliet placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Ada, it is never too late to change. Life is not about shortcuts. Work hard, keep your dignity, and God will lift you too." Ada wept. Years passed and Juliet's restaurant grew into a chain. She became a respected businesswoman, employing dozens of staff. She also graduated from the university, making her parents prouder than ever. Newspapers even wrote about her story. From Mama Put to Mogul, the inspiring journey of Juliet Okafor. But Juliet never let her success get into her head. She was still the humble girl who once cooked with smoke stinking her eyes by the roadside. Each time she told her story, she ended with the same words. The plate of food I gave away that day became the key to my destiny. Kindness is never wasted. What you sow in secret, God rewards in the open. And so, Juliet's life became a testimony, not just for her family, but for everyone who heard her story. From poverty to promise, from struggle to success, she rose by holding on to her dignity, faith, and kindness. Her tomorrow truly became greater than her today. If you like this story, please don't go yet. Drop the moral you learned in the comment section. Thank you for watching.